right now, and he's keeping an eye on this block, the 4400 block of homes. They're also patrolling a couple of streets behind this particular street just to make sure that there are no looters around. And as a matter of fact, I'm a little surprised because there are a couple of people here watching us as we do our newscast, but pretty soon I'm sure the police officers will make sure that they go away.
And what about the residents? Are they allowed to come back and check on their homes at this point or not?
Not yet. As far as I talked to Mrs. Christi earlier this evening, she said that police may allow her to go back into her home tomorrow morning. That she used the word may, so we'll keep an eye on that.
All right, and we'll check back with you in just a few minutes. Katya, thanks very much. Live tonight at that blast scene. Now, as we mentioned a few moments ago, two men were seriously injured in this blast. One is 25 years old, a good Samaritan at the scene because he identified himself as Randy Connor. The other victim is 60 years old. Family members identified him as Robert Farley. Both were transferred via halo flight to the burn unit at the Military Medical Center in San Antonio, used to be known as BAMC. The fire department says one of the victims was found in the backyard of the home where the explosion happened. He had cuts all over his body and was singed around his face. The other victim had burns to his upper body and his arms and legs. They'd been carried to a park across the street, Lions Park, and we're told one or two others had minor injuries but did not require treatment. We did speak with one neighbor who lived right behind the blast site who told his residents in the area had smelled natural gas yesterday.
The neighbor had reported smelling gas, like it could have possibly been a gas leak, but he couldn't determine it to be sure.
And when did he say he smelled that?
Yesterday.
In the afternoon?
I have no idea.
Did he call anybody?
I have no idea.
That was Eric Phillips. His family has lived here on Andover Drive since 1998. The Phillips home suffered heavy damage from the blast today. Some of the ceiling peeled away and the insulation and glass covered the inside of their home. Other neighbors on Andover had their windows blown out as well. Some say their home foundations even shifted because of the blast. Now, often in a crisis like this, you hear amazing stories of good Samaritans risking their own lives to help out. Tonight, Mike DeSilva introduces us to one man who was eating at a nearby IHOP restaurant when he heard the explosion.
We saw the smoke and the fire, and we just started running. We jumped the fence, and then once we got into the fire, we just heard help, help.
Once inside, with no regard for the danger posed to himself, Mike Obenhouse began rescuing people, bringing them to safety.
We heard a bunch of screams, and there was mom and dad, a little boy, little girl, and we got them out and then found another man lying in the middle of the fire. So we moved him away. He had cuts all over his body. So we drug him out of the fire. He kept saying he was burning, but the fire was about 10 feet away, and he kept coming closer to us, about 5 feet away to where we were burning.
Obenhouse, who was on scene before the fire department arrived and who was left with blood on his jeans, describing the scene as gruesome and traumatic.
It wasn't like running into a house. It was like running into boards and nails and fire. You know, you picture you run into a house, you bust through the door, no house was there, the roof, everything was at ground level, all the boards, everything. It looked like an implosion from the house. The walls were spread out sideways, like a cardboard box just flattened outside, wood, nails everywhere. I probably got puncture holes all in my feet from nails, but yeah, the one guy was pretty bad. The kids were shaken up, and yeah, it's a bad sight. All around.
Mike DeSilva, 3 News.
Still a remarkable young man, and so thankful to have him there. We spoke with one lady who ran to that same moment after the explosion, ran toward the fire, and helped to comfort one of the victims.
He was holding my hand, and he was telling me that he was scared, and he told me that there was someone else in there. I asked him for his age. He told me he was 27 years old, and his name was Randy Connor or something like that. And he said his dog was in there, but he said his man got away, but his dog's in there. He was really upset, and he was like holding my hand, and he didn't want to let go, and he was telling me how scared he was.
Shortly after the explosion, the Red Cross volunteers were on the scene trying to assess the damage and help out the victims. They set up operations here at the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center on McCardle, offering food and water to those affected by the blast. They also handed out cleaning kits to use once they are allowed to return to their homes for good.
And we're welcoming you to live in the area to come home. Take advantage of the air conditioning. Sit in we're getting some light food. We have cold water. We have some support. So we want to be good neighbors.
And they always are. The Red Cross will be at that Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center in the 5100 block of McCardle starting at 8 in the morning, and they'll be there until noon to meet once again with those who've been impacted by this. Many of the affected families are wondering what to do if their home was damaged in some way as a result of the blast. And we were told today the first thing they should do, the very first thing, is call their insurance company and file a claim. The insurance company will then have an adjuster contact them. And residents do need to find out what the policy covers and how much their deductible is. Some policies may cover such things as hotel expenses, and some even cover grocery and dining costs. But the first step is to call the insurance company, and experts say you should do that as soon as you possibly can. Now, many residents who felt the explosion or saw the aftermath on television wanted to see it firsthand. And the problem is, when they did that, they got in the way of the first responders and people trying to do their jobs. Our Aniali Ruiz reports tonight on the spectator problem.
What was left of Friday morning's explosion was a scene that was hard to believe.
Oh my God, I'm surprised that anybody else actually survived through that thing. Oh man, I just couldn't believe my eyes. That it made so much damage like this to like 4 houses.
Many residents from all over the city decided to make the drive to see what was left of this morning's explosion. Many in disbelief at the rubble and debris that was left behind.
It's different than when you see it on television.
That house over there with the blinking cars, like, wow, I didn't know that would do that much damage. Corpus Christi police blocked the street and taped off the affected area. Officers say that at one point this nearby park was filled with so many people, it looked like a festival was going on.
I've been in Corpus all my life. Never have I ever seen something like this before. Never. I've seen it in Vietnam. I've seen it in other places in the war, but I've never seen it close by the house.
Aniali Ruiz, 3 News.
Well, it's quite a sight. And as we mentioned earlier, the force of the blast was felt right here in our studios. We were just a couple of blocks away from it. In fact, it all happened live on 3 News First Edition. Watch.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm John Thomas. It's 5:30 a.m. Friday, July 12th. Christi Diaz is here. There's an activity out there.
Hear that? Incredible. And listening to it on television really doesn't do it justice. It was much louder here in the studio. Something people normally are not accustomed to hearing and seeing on a morning newscast. And this was the footage that we shot just moments after the blast from our 3 News tower cam. You see the flames reaching high into the sky. It took fire crews nearly an hour to get control of that raging inferno. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the day's other news, including the latest from Austin on that abortion reform bill